Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm going to do this for this particular episode. I've got a great deal of information that I wanted to get through here, and I wanted to cover a lot of this, of course, before Donald Trump gives his speech. So I'm recording this on Tuesday, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to get through this information and this content here first, and then I'm basically going to pause the recording and just hold off. And then what I'll do is at the end of this particular episode, I'll sort of add in my 2 cents as to what I thought transpired during Donald Trump's speech. So certainly stay tuned for the end of this episode regarding all of that. Again, I'll record it later in the evening after the speech is over with, and then give you my my 2 cents on it anyway. I think it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of rumors swirling as to what's going to be said, what's going to happen. Of course, a lot of economic development and things of that nature are going to be brought up, a lot of the obvious things that we're well aware of. Of course, there's rumors swirling right now that there are individuals who are going to be protesting and might even, do some other nonsense-related things like applauding or snapping their fingers or just being all around gay. It's highly possible that's likely to occur, although who's to say? But anyway, with that said, I also saw apparently they're putting up the fencing around the Capitol building again. So that's kind of an interesting thing as well. But anyway, with all of that aside, just very quickly, and again, I'll get into that a little bit later, certainly toward the end of this episode as to what transpired during all of that. I just want to make mention of this. Regardless of the one-dimensional perceived projections or comments that are being made out there regarding this individual or that individual or, this political person in Trump's administration or that one, the prevailing message here and the reminder, I think, is that people need to understand that we don't need government. That government doesn't get to dictate what we do, how we think, how we feel, and how we behave and how we act. That's not up to government. That's up to us. That's our free will given to us by Jesus. That's the way that it is. It's always been that way. But very quickly, depending on what a politician says, or again, what one of Donald Trump's cabinet members say, whatever it is, they all of a sudden sort of revert back into the matrix of, well, we want all of our government officials to do everything that we want them to do all of the time and say all of the things that we want them to say all of the time, and then not say particular things that they, of course, have said in the past that we wish that they would stop saying. Again, this happens with regularity, where people are immediately sort of just bending the knee yet again to government, regardless of which proverbial aisle, inhabits the White House, so to speak. That's not why we the people. That's not the point. These individuals and their backgrounds don't necessarily coincide with ours. We get to be smarter than them. We get to know more information than they do. We get to, of course, tell the truth all of the time, no matter what, without any hooks in our back or puppet strings on us or somebody's hand in our backside moving our mouth to say a particular thing a particular way. We also out here in the American populace, even though we are witnessing a military operational plan to deprogram human beings, we're also, of course, seeing individuals openly participate in these operations and these psychological programs, whether they be, again, good psychological programs or negative psychological programs. Point being, we don't have to participate because we're not being paid by them and we're not associated with them. And there are certain things, of course, that we vote for, and there are certain things that we don't vote for that end up happening also. But we're not in control of everything. We can just control what we can control. And as long as we figure out what the truth is, then we have to say it. Again, keeping in mind, some comments are brought up for the sole purpose of, again, gaslighting individuals or putting your enemy to sleep for a little while, making it seem like you support them 100% when in fact you might not. And then at the exact same time, you're not trying to panic certain individuals as well. Let me give you a very quick example. Again, there are numerous examples of this. But very recently, of course, Donald Trump has openly said that he's going to eliminate federal funding for colleges and universities that continue to have illegal protests, basically of any kind. Now, with that said, what I've said before is that any protest that occurs on a college campus is legal. You're allowed to protest lots of different ways. You can walk down a sidewalk if you want, keeping in mind this is not what college campuses are for. However, just a little side note, this is what communists want. And it's Zionists and Jews that run these universities. Everybody pretty much knows that. I mean, that's they may not be the actual individuals who are the presidents all of the time, although we've seen this pattern play out where they get rid of individuals who are not Jewish and then they replace them with Jews. With that said, this really isn't the entire point of what is supposed to be going on a college campus. But as far as Zionists are concerned, this is exactly what's supposed to be happening, is chaos. So actually what Donald Trump is doing, if a person can read between the lines, is he's basically saying, stop protesting. That if you organize protests, we're going to find you and we're going to arrest you and we're going to kick you out. That's not just for students, though. That's for staff members also. It's for lots of different people. You're basically, again, pulling the rug out from underneath groups like the CIA, the FBI, the ADL, the IDF, Mossad, you name it, and all these other groups that have basically been, again, stoking the flames of all of this the entire time. You can go back again into my Substacks if you want and take a look at the article that I put together, whatever it was, 2 years ago about the Jewish lobby and their influence, again, over the entire campus and university apparatus. And then, of course, there was a multi-series documentary, I think it was at least 3 parts, maybe even more than that if memory serves, again called The Lobby. It specifically hones in on how Mossad and Israel infiltrate colleges and universities and then play both sides. They'll play the side of the Palestinians and give the Palestinians what they want to piss them off. And then on the flip side of that coin, they end up, of course, creating a counter-protest and then they play the victim. It's a constant psychological manipulation, a constant false flag, the whole thing. But what Donald Trump's executive order does is it pulls the rug right out from underneath all of that. And yes, I fully understand. People are saying, well, whatever, this weaponizes Jews against everybody else. Well, it kind of does, but it disarms them also, because they're the ones that are putting all of this together. So that's my take on that particular issue. But then, of course, you have this, which a lot of people are losing their minds over also. And I understand it. I mean, it makes perfect sense. It doesn't make sense why he would say this, but again, he's saying this to make it potentially look like, again, he's still on the side of Zionists, which, let's face it, Zionists killed his entire family. So Secretary Kennedy, again on his X account, at Sec Kennedy, said the following here on March 3rd, anyway. He said, quote, anti-Semitism, like racism, is a spiritual and moral malady that sickens societies and kills people with lethalities comparable to history's most deadly plagues. In recent years, the censorship and false narratives of woke cancel culture have transformed our great universities into greenhouses for this deadly and virulent pestilence, he said. Making America healthy means building communities of trust and mutual respect based upon speech, freedom, and open debate. Unquote. Again, there's truth to that. There's no doubt about it. But at the exact same time, using words, again, like anti-Semitism and racism, it depends on how you look at that sentence. And I can see it from both sides. I'm not making excuses for him. Again, he takes pictures of himself in Israel, I understand, with Rabbi Shmuley and all these other idiots. And he's done all of that. But again, to assume that Secretary Kennedy doesn't know that Mossad has killed his entire family is absurd. I think he knows that. With that said, anti-Semitism doesn't exist, and racism doesn't exist. These are 2 words that are completely made up. There are individuals, again, that are pro-race, and that's basically it, and that's fine. And we get to be pro-race. We get to support our own race, and we don't have to put down or support, rather, our own race at the expense of others. We just get to support our own race, and that's 100% fine. But if anybody believes for a minute that you send your children to these Jewish institutions, and they all are, brick and mortar anyway, and then you expect, I don't know, to not be attacked if you're not Jewish is absurd. I mean, the war on whites is beyond evident. Endless books have been written about it. And this, too, is again what the Jewish lobby sought to do. I mean, they sought to divide everybody against whites. They didn't speak about Asians, couldn't say anything about them. If they were communists, then yeah, they would support them. But other than that, they pretty much stay away from Asians for the most part. But it's basically getting every race to hate whites. And then, of course, create all of this faux chaos in foreign countries that magically just finds its way on a college and university campuses. Well, again, why is that the case? Simple. They're all in it together. They all get the same memos. They all get the same memo outrage. And it's all, of course, the big Ivy League schools. And again, none of this is new to this listening audience. We're well aware of this. But I don't hang my hat on any one particular thing that one particular person says and or does, and then take it at face value and then, flip out and lose my mind. I don't care what Secretary Kennedy says really about anything. I mean, I don't care. He doesn't get to control the way that I think and diminish my knowledge on a number of different subjects. Again, he was the topic of a Fox News article earlier this week having to do with MMR, vaccines, measles, mumps, rubella, and and how allegedly vaccination is beneficial in all of this and keeping people from having measles, mumps, and rubella. Everybody knows that's not true. We all know that that's not true. If the left wants to believe that vaccinating your children is the healthiest thing for them, let them kill their own children. They're going to do it. We've screamed from the mountaintops for a very long time that this is the cause of autism. It's the cause of endless diseases, certainly neurological, in particular, of course, later in life and early age, and instant death. We know this. So we don't need government to remind us or try to change our minds. We've already seen the evidence. We've run it through the scientific method. We know exactly what's going on here. And one of the things that was highlighted in that article, which some people skipped over, was that he wasn't necessarily advocating for vaccination, although there was some tone that made it sound like that. But one of the things that he was basically saying is that measles and mumps aren't deadly. So what's the point of vaccination then? That's the question he's posing to people. What's the point? Why even take it? If it's not deadly, then who cares? And the answer is this: it isn't deadly. Because the only way that you get measles, mumps, or rubella is by being around children or adults who have currently or recently received the measles, mumps, rubella vaccination. That's the only way that you end up with the symptoms associated with those particular illnesses. Because as I've said before, and even on Substack, and again, you're well aware, that the business of illness is brought on by electromagnetism and shedding from people who are already ill with said poison. So the name of the illness comes about as a result of a symptom of being poisoned. There really isn't measles, mumps, and rubella. It doesn't really exist. What exists is poison. And then symptoms associated with being poisoned. But what he's saying is that being shed on is not nearly as bad as injecting it directly into your bone marrow, depending on how deep the needle goes, or directly into your bloodstream and into your muscle. That's far worse, is what he's basically saying. So again, it's not for us. Those articles aren't for us. And if we expect somebody on the left to accurately interpret anything that he's, again, attempting to bring to light here, I think that ship has sailed. I don't think that their cognitive capacity is present in the slightest. These individuals, again, fall for the latest thing. It's just what they do. And again, we voted for healthier decisions to be made. It doesn't mean that that's necessarily going to happen, but it's also, again, it has to do with us not needing government. It falls back on that always. We don't need government to dictate for us what we do in our own lives. Not ever. So tweets can be made, certain statements can be made, a number of other things can be made. But as you've even heard me say in previous episodes, certainly in the last episode, it's beyond evident, again, who the enemy is in our country and around the world. Because they've all taken the same side. We know who's starting the wars across the world. We know who the enemy is. We know who's created all of the perversions, too. Again, just the other day, the No Men and Girls Sports Bill didn't pass because it needs like 61 votes. And every single Democrat voted against it. Well, they just showed their hand, didn't they? Again, it's common sense as to what should be going on, but they're destroying themselves, which is 100% fine because, again, even not passing that bill right now as it currently sits and as it currently resides is 100% fine because there's still an executive order in place. And the executive order still pulls federal funds from those schools and from those districts and from those states. If they still have, again, boys playing in girls' sports. So they just shot themselves in the foot yet again. Again, it's Zootsfing. They were put in a position where it didn't matter what move they made. They were still going to be forced to make a move, and it was still going to be a losing move because they've already lost. This is just playing over and over and over again. It's, again, one of the things here with this upcoming speech with Donald Trump. Every failure that the left or the right engages in, he stands up there separate from the rest as a completely separate part and branch of government. And he gets to tell them all that they're dog shit if he wants to. He can look at the right and say, you've made numerous mistakes in the past, and the reason that we're here is because of all of you. And he can look over to the left and he can say the exact same thing. But again, even when the speech is over with, and even when moments like that are over with, what happens? Do we all just fall back into the matrix and go, well, time to just do what government wants? No, we can just do whatever we'd like. You've heard me say it before, and jokingly so, but I still have yet to find an entire tranny league that's just filled with a sports team filled with trannies. Why don't they have the transsexual hockey league, as I brought up a long time ago? I mean, I'd actually pay to see that for 5 seconds. 5 seconds. I mean, I wouldn't watch longer than that because I don't care. But again, you have these individuals and all these trannies screaming that they want to play sports. Start your own league. Why don't you just start your own league? But at the exact same time, if you're not a tranny and you're not brainwashed and your parents aren't crazy and your school, I don't know, officials and whoever else aren't supporting your mental illness, then what is it that you're supposed to do if you're still choosing to play sports? Very simple. You don't have to tolerate the insanity. So if a tranny shows up and wants to play and the coach says, well, I'm going to let you play, they can't play by themselves. They just can't. They can't make up a full basketball team. They can't make up, a full field hockey team. They can't make up a soccer team. Pick a team. It doesn't matter. Everybody just has to walk away. And all the girls or whomever, again, have to get together and just make the decision, look, we're going to walk away from all of this and we're just never going to play ever again. That also means what? It means the coach can't coach anymore. So the coach is out of a job. Good. These are the rights that we all hold. These are the rights that we all have. And we get to vote with our feet anytime we want. So I don't understand what the problem is. Yes, we would like this to become law in our country so that this never happens again. But it already right now is a federal mandate. You have to do this or else. And again, as I just said, in not doing it, it exposes them further. And I'm 100% fine with that because it'll be temporary. Eventually it will be law. It just isn't right this second. Now, let me give you another example of what I'm talking about when it comes to us not needing government. And I have a different take on this. In fact, I have a couple of different takes on this. I can see this from at least 3 different angles and 3 different dimensions. And I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing, certainly at the first dimensional wavelength. It certainly isn't. But just the other day, Melania Trump along with Ted Cruz and some other senators and representatives and what have you. Bipartisanship, quote unquote. They all got behind what is called the Take It Down Act. And what this has to do with, it's already passed the Senate. It was written in the Senate originally. It's moving its way to the House. It'll pass the House, and then, of course, the president will sign it. Long story short with this, what this has to do with is primarily, it has to do with minors who engage in, but not even minors, it's basically anybody, who essentially, again, engage in the exploitation of a male or a female by either putting real or fake photos or videos of these individuals online in situations where they were not given permission to do so, or again, they are completely falsified in one way or another, like, for example, using artificial intelligence to create a scenario or put someone's face or voice over top of somebody else's body while specifically engaging in a sexual act, or whatever it may be. Basically, again, this becomes a felony, and then social media companies have a legal obligation specifically to get rid of said videos and or pictures. Now, again, I can take this a lot of different ways, but first of all, let me just pose this question. This is, again, a multidimensional look at this, I think, but I hope that this isn't the case. I hope that this isn't being passed in an effort to keep people like us from sharing made-up videos of celebrities' faces, for example, which is created by an AI system, holding up signs that say, "I was on Epstein's flight log," or "I've been to Epstein's Island." You see what I mean? These AI videos exist all over the place of, again, AI-generated celebrities who look just like them, and that's what they're basically doing. Would this then give those celebrities, so to speak, an opportunity to sue the individuals or individual who made such an AI video, and then force the social media platform to take it down? Because when it's had to do with minors, for example, even when law enforcement gets involved, social media platforms have been reached out to take these videos down, and they don't do anything about it. They basically say, well, it's freedom of expression. There's nothing I can do. And, that's the way that is. So there's that angle of it, which is remarkably nefarious. And I certainly hope that that's not the case. But who's to say? It is politicians with bipartisan support, quote unquote. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that in the future. However, the face value approach to this is, of course, a very positive one, which is that individuals, again, don't get to do these kinds of things to minors to, again, embarrass them publicly or humiliate them or what have you, which, of course, and unfortunately can lead to drug addiction, suicide, and things of that nature because of the embarrassment associated with having their face or likeness recreated or actually plastered all over the internet without their consent, given the fact, again, that they're a minor. The other dimension, and sort of the third degree of all of this, which I think should be beyond evident also, is that not only does that kind of behavior exist and is perpetuated, of course, among very evil people, but social media, of course, has a huge role to play with all of it, and its influence in young adults' lives or young children's lives, in, again, perpetuating that kind of behavior. But so does the public school. See, the public school allows these kinds of things to take place all of the time, and depending on their policy and their overreach, in the past, they've basically not been able to do anything regardless of what transpires. However, the school environment also perpetuates the use of social media and the use of those platforms to the detriment, of course, of the so-called students who are attending those environments. In fact, it's the home learning child and the homeschooled child that would actually be further away from social media in a negative way, as opposed to somebody who is wrapped up in it in a school environment and around their peers all of the time, talking about nothing but social media posts and have you seen this video and have you seen this and have you seen that and blah, blah, blah. And that just, again, further confuses and brainwashes the young mind of an individual into believing that these are behaviors that are acceptable. So here's what the Take It Down Act, again, also does. I believe it has a great deal to also do with something that's referred to as sextortion, which, again, is basically, if you don't give me what I want, then I'll post these pictures of you and there's nothing you can do about it, kind of thing. It also says this in this article, which is from timesnowworldnews.com or timesnownews.com. But toward the end of it, it says, while most states have laws against revenge porn, only 20 states have explicit regulations addressing AI-generated NCII, which stands for non-consensual intimate images. And again, it says the Take It Down Act aims to close this gap, ensuring that stricter protections for victims and holding perpetrators accountable in this evolving digital landscape, unquote. Again, I think that at face value, certainly from a K-12 student and minor standpoint, it's a good thing, where I'm afraid this might be manipulated or get used in the future to benefit pedophiles, certainly politicians and or celebrities, is if a video pops up on the internet, one of them will claim that it's artificial intelligence or that it isn't them, when in fact it would be. Again, if there's video of Adam Schiff in the Standard Hotel raping a kid to death who was on drugs and then the kid dies, which is the prevailing story with Adam Schiff, then, that video were to be released, I don't know when, if or when or how, but if it did, he would just say, well, it's fake and it's a deep fake kind of thing, because he was one of the people many years ago shouting about deep fake videos and you can't believe everything that you see and all of it's manipulated and whatever else. As it turns out, by and large, a lot of these deep fake videos that exist are used in the hands of comedians and conservative comedians to make politicians, do funny things in certain situations. But even so, I can just see multiple angles of this. But the first dimensional angle is that, yeah, it would protect minors, no doubt about it. But at the same time, if you want to get minors away from those perverse behaviors and those perverse people who engage in those kinds of, again, sextortion activities, well, then you need to be better parents. Keep them away from social media. Keep the devices out of their hands. Keep them away from boys and girls who, again, are reckless, sexually promiscuous, and 1,000 other things. And then, of course, keep them away from public and private and charter schools, where they get around complete strangers on a day in and day out basis. And they hear about things that they've never even heard about in their entire lives without any parental guidance. Not to mention, again, you have school teachers themselves openly engaging in these kinds of behaviors with social media and then perpetuating the social media lifestyle, so to speak, as degenerate as it is in many cases, on students themselves. And then basically saying, so you need to get an Instagram account for this assignment that we're going to do, and then you need to take some pictures of things and blah, blah, blah. You're introducing the environment to these minors where very horrible things can happen to them. Again, data harvesting being one of the many. Lack of privacy, 1,000 other things. And then, of course, long term, you open them up to things like exhibitionism and voyeurism and vanity and pride and selfies and all that other bullshit. And it's just disgusting. But again, this is perpetuated in the school environment. So for this, again, at face value, to become a felony would basically put school teachers on blast and school administrators on blast, because they would have to do something about it now. And if parents, again, or students themselves brought this to the attention of administrators, well, it's a felony. So they'd have to bypass the school environment, let the school environment know, probably secondhand. But ultimately, you would be bypassing them and going directly to the police because, again, it would become law and it would be a felony. So there you go. Okay, with that aside, I've got more education stuff here, so let me keep rocking through it. This is from the Epoch Times. the Department of Education staffers offered buyouts of $25,000. Linda McMahon, of course, has now been confirmed. She is in. And it goes on and says those who decline the offer of $25,000 could be terminated later under ongoing plans to reduce the size of the agency or eventually eliminate it. And they're being given, again, what's called a $25,000 separation incentive payment. If I was them, I would take it. Again, they're in deep trouble. Deep, deep trouble. You've heard me say it before. I'll keep saying it. Child trafficking. These individuals have been engaging in all of the behaviors associated with sexual promiscuity, sexual perversion, child trafficking, etc., etc. And the writing is on the wall here with this, and the clues are everywhere. The dots are on top of each other. The Department of Education needs to be completely eliminated, 100%, burn the entire building to the ground. And then, like Donald Trump has openly stated, it'll go back to the states. But as I've stated also, that's where the real fight will begin. The gayer states will become gayer than you can possibly imagine. And the ones that are not, they will tighten down too. And then you will quite literally have a massive IQ shift from individuals, again, coming out of particular areas and particular states that are less gay as opposed to those that are more gay. And that's just kind of the way that it's going to be. But ultimately, again, it'll boil all the way down to the local level. And, how stupid and perverse, of course, is your school board going to be? And what are they going to tolerate? And what are they going to allow? Well, they can't violate state law and they can't violate federal law. And if federal and state law crushes them, well, then let them be crushed. That'll be the end of them then. And that's a good thing. But again, this entire back and forth political fight that's going on in the field of education is absent in the entire family dynamic of individuals learning to read and write and teach themselves at home in a safer environment. And I fully understand that not every home is a safe environment and school is sometimes a refuge for some students, but therein lies my much larger point that I've made time and time again. Public schools, private schools, charter schools in the future should only be left to the homeless, the mentally and physically handicapped, and that's it. It should be for them to make sure that those three groups of individuals have the resources that they need. And yes, that bill would be awfully small, which means you wouldn't need to tax property in order to maintain these buildings. The buildings would consolidate. They would become smaller over the course of time. Again, this is big picture stuff, and I'm talking like decades down the line here, but ultimately that would have to end up being the case. And this is one of the other reasons I think why that's the case. And you've heard me bring this up before, and it has to do with the teacher shortage. Let me get into this very quickly. The governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, he's a slippery little guy here. He's doing whatever he can with a nice tone of voice to make it sound like the education system in Pennsylvania is fixing itself because of moves that he's making. He's 100% wrong. In fact, this 15-minute video, I'm not going to play it. I'm going to summarize it for you very quickly here, but it's on Forbes Breaking News on YouTube, and it only has 742 views. It's really embarrassing. I think it just proves that nobody trusts a word that he says. Here's what he said regarding Pennsylvania. First of all, I would say around the middle of the 15 minutes, he openly mentions that they have a workforce, quote-unquote, shortage. Not just a teacher shortage, but he quite literally runs through every profession that was forced to take the shots, the COVID shots. He runs through every single profession. He goes, well, police officers, firefighters, EMS workers, nurses, those who take care of the elderly, and teachers. And I'm going, yeah, why do you have a shortage? What happened to all of them? Are they dead? Are they chronically ill and can't work? Are they sick all of the time and now they get fired because they're sick all of the time and they can't even go to work? They did this to themselves. I mean, they injected their own population, and now they actually believe that they can solve this problem. Not to mention, of course, no one's ever recognizing the rampant child abuse that existed at the hands of gullible adults in the field of education throughout the entire COVID lie. That's why the voice you're hearing right now is the only person who wrote a book about all of that abuse. I'm the only one. Why has no one else written a book about all of the specific abuse that transpired via brainwashing and by way of brainwashing throughout the entire quote-unquote education profession throughout all those years, certainly in 2020 and then the very beginning of 2021 and throughout? They're refusing to recognize what they've done. They're refusing, because again, they would have to point the finger at themselves and look in the mirror, and they don't want to do that. So here's what he said again regarding the shortages of not just everybody who's been jabbed in all of those different professions, but specifically regarding teachers. He said that there are 5,500 teaching vacancies or education vacancies in the entire state. That's flipping huge. That's enormous. That number, by the way, 5,500, is also true when it comes to the number of certified teachers that have just been certified in the last year, which is remarkably low. And he openly says that 10 years ago, there were 20,000 teachers per year that would get certified to teach in the state of Pennsylvania. Now it's only 5,500. It's a complete and utter collapse of the profession. No one with a brain wants to do it anymore. It's too corrupt. Administrators are too controlling. It's too perverse. Child trafficking, child abuse, sexual abuse, illegality of endless proportions. Everything from something as simple as neglect to sexual grooming and physical abuse and sexual abuse and drug use and so on and so on and so on. The list is endless. And yet, in stereotypical politician education fashion, he actually believes that throwing money at the problem is going to solve the problem. He believes that money is the incentivizer here. So here's the program he put in place. He threw money at it. He openly said that if you're student teaching, that government, that the Pennsylvania government, which we know is the taxpayer, is going to end up giving those student teachers a financial stipend and a voucher, so to speak, in order to, again, get paid to student teach. Of the 6,000 plus vouchers that were available, only 4,000 took them up on their offer, which left over 2,000 available that no one even bothered attempting to go for. It didn't work. You can't throw money at it. Well, we'll give you some money while you student teach, and we know student teaching is hard and you've got some student debt, and if some of this money can help help you out, then we'd be happy to do that, but we've only got 6,000 available seats, and here you go. And only approximately 4,000 ended up actually using it. So his double down plan is to just offer more money now, the next time around. So that whoever applies the next time gets more money. Well, what about everybody who applied the first time? They're not going to get as much money as the people who apply now. So you're spitting in their face, you're pulling the rug out from underneath the people who did it the first time to allegedly benefit the people who now take up this offer the second time, when they're not going to want to do that either, because the first time around you would have taught you the lesson. That people aren't going to jump through your hoops just for a few extra bucks. They're not interested in it. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. The long-term pain is not worth getting paid a few extra bucks. You've heard me mention this statistic. It holds true today. In fact, I would go so far as to say it's been slashed in half, and it's gotten worse as a result. If you walk into any school building in America, public, private, charter, within 5 years, half of those staff members will be gone. That's the going statistic, and that's been that way for over 10 years. That's not that it hasn't gotten better over the last 4 years. It's gotten worse. The people who left the profession in droves in 2020 was endless. They instantly saw that something terrible was happening. Same thing, of course, and you're well aware of this, with student enrollment. Student enrollment dramatically declined during 2020. Why? Schools refuse to acknowledge this. It is by and large because those parents with those children in those schools didn't want their children abused. They also knew, and this is the kicker, that COVID was fake, that it was a government lie, and that it was all just manufactured social engineering panic. That's why they left, because they looked at themselves as families and looked around at the people that they knew who were doing the same thing and went, holy shit, these school districts are falling for this. They're actually believing it. This is what the school environment and the people that run them don't understand. They don't want to acknowledge why people are leaving and don't want to get in it in the first place. Again, it couldn't be more evident today than ever before that wanting to enter this profession now, by and large, certainly at the public level, I'll give private religious schools and certainly, small elementary religious schools a break to some extent, assuming again that they never participate in this nonsense ever again. But the public schools in particular, they're the ones that refuse to acknowledge what's actually happened here. And people, again, entering the public environment, they have something wrong with them. At this point, again, there's something seriously wrong with them. They're hiring the wrong people. They're promoting the wrong people. It's nepotistic, it's superficial, it's corrupt, it's everything. I know I'm a broken record on it, but it is American Education FM after all, and well, kind of comes with the territory, but this should just prove to you again that if this is Governor Josh Shapiro's solution, he's lost his mind, if he ever even had it. He's also bragging, and this has to be mentioned, he's bragging about things that are completely manipulated. Much like the money aspect, the certification aspect is the exact same. He's claiming that when he took office, it took him months, if not years, to get a vast majority of new teachers certified in order to enter the classroom as a certified teacher. Now he's saying it only takes a couple of weeks. That's not a good thing either, because what does that mean? It means he's dropped as a state the parameters of what it takes to become a certified licensed school teacher. The qualifications have dropped. They're not interested in just having Americans, legal Americans who are English speaking and fluent in English being the school teachers. No, they're interested in anybody else and getting them certified as quickly as humanly possible. Take a couple of college classes very quickly, do a couple things online, and before you know it, you'll be certified. That's it. They're retarding the entire process. It's already retarded, but they're just retarding it even more, thereby again being able to brag about the number of teachers that are certified and how quickly they're getting certified. I mean, my God, that's like bragging about how quickly you're getting a 15-year-old to get a driver's license. Well, normally the process for them getting a driver's license took approximately a month. Now it's down to 2 days. We throw them in a car, they take a test, and we give them a driver's license and a set of keys, and they're off and they're running. Does that sound like a good thing? No way. No chance. Lipstick on a pig. That's all it is. They're painting the inside of the walls when the roof is caving in. I love it. Because again, you don't even have to have been in the business, as I have, to read between the lines here as to what's actually transpiring and what's taking place. It's beyond obvious. So I'm rooting for its continued collapse. I can't wait for that to be the case. Again, the writing is on the wall here, and there's no stopping this. So I'm just getting out of the way and commenting on it as it falls. There's also this, more evidence of the collapse. This was on March 3rd. The Office of Civil Rights launches a Title IX investigation into Washington State School District. Again, has to do with interscholastic sports and girls competing against boys and all of that stuff. Certain school districts, again, not playing by the rules here when it comes to the executive order. And now, of course, they're opening up their own investigations against these school districts, and rightfully so. So keep it up. I mean, keep going after these school districts, no doubt about it. Don't threaten to take their money. Just investigate and then take their money. And don't provide it in the future, certainly the next time around, until they comply. And again, much like HHS and Secretary Kennedy's comments on X, this is also from the U.S. Department of Education. It says, ED, HHS, and GSA announce additional measures to end anti-Semitic harassment on college campuses. Again, I'm not hearing of a lot of this. I'm just not. And I'm certainly not seeing it, and I don't think many people are seeing it. I don't think many people care. This is just a Jewish drum that keeps being beaten in order to, again, play the perpetual victim all of the time. And again, why people go to brick and mortar schools in this day and age is beyond me. It says measures will include comprehensive review of federal contracts and grants given to institutions of higher education that are being investigated for dereliction of duties to curb or combat anti-Semitic violence and harassment. Well, the fact is that, as we all know, any harassment against any race of human being is against the law. And if it takes place on a college campus, regardless of the race, well, it's still against the law. It really shouldn't favor one race over another. The Civil Rights Act applies to everybody, regardless of race and regardless of religion. But so does the First Amendment. Again, I find it hilarious that it's these very Marxist and communist and Jewish institutions that are the ones actually being attacked and threatened financially. I mean, Columbia University is notorious for being the Frankfurt School migration point for all of those communist Jews over there who were 100% hell-bent on destroying American education and the American way of life. That's why Columbia University, again, has been a long-standing think tank and degenerate institution as a result of, again, social engineering, and then creating social engineering to then be perpetuated on the rest of the American populace through entertainment and, again, technology, academia, the written word, you name it. And now these are the actual institutions themselves that are being brought down by the Jews that are actually inside of their institutions themselves. I mean, the irony is palpable. But this is also how crazy these people are, is that they would love to, again, rule over the ashes. They don't have a problem destroying their own environment and making everyone around them as miserable as they are, as long as they can rule over what used to be. In fact, let me play this audio here for you. This was from Fox News. Absolutely hilarious that Fox News would even reference the ADL. The title of this was 13 American Universities Slapped with F Grade on Campus Anti-Semitism. And then the subtitle was Anti-Defamation League releases its 2025 Campus Anti-Semitism Report Card. Who cares? Who cares? It's a communist Jewish Marxist institution, Bolshevistic in style and in their approach to enforcement. Remarkably violent, remarkably totalitarian, guilty until proven innocent. I've been over it all before. But now what do you have? You have these task forces that are going to manufacture and lie about Jews being attacked on college campuses. And then what is that really doing? Well, in the end, it's actually destroying the college environment and the university environment more so than it already has been by these very people. Again, they're burning their own house down with them inside while they hold the lighters and the gasoline. It's incredible, but there's no proof. There's no proof of any of this. Again, a pro-Palestinian or pro-Christian or pro-anybody walking down the street waving a flag is not a crime. That's not a crime in the United States. The obvious part of this completely manufactured issue is that, by and large, the individuals, rather, that they are interviewing to perpetuate this non-existent I don't know, anti-Semitism, old anti pops up again, is the individuals they're interviewing are Jewish themselves. Jewish professors, Jewish students, and what are they all saying? They're all saying the same things. I just don't know why more isn't being done. We've experienced enough and we're the victims and blah, blah, blah. I just don't know anybody who believes this anymore. So anyway, with that said, give this here a listen. Again, you're going to hear directly from a female Jewish student who, again, like, I don't know, seriously, like, why isn't more being done? I just, like, literally don't know. It's called the Constitution. We know you hate it. Deal with it. Give her a listen in 3, 2, 1.
Jewish students rattled again after a wild scene at New York's Barnard College this week. Anti-Israel protesters forcefully taking over a campus building on Wednesday, allegedly assaulting one employee in the process, and the protests continued throughout the week. Barnard College sophomore and Jewish student Rachel Kaufman joins me now. Rachel, thank you so much for coming on to talk to us about what you and other Jewish students are experiencing there at Barnard College. I just want to start with that. Do you feel safe? How are you doing? What has this last week been like?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Molly. It's definitely been a struggle. I think that for me, the biggest thing is being able to go to class. I picked Barnard to be able to learn, and it's just so frustrating to have my classes interrupted and to see this on my way to class. And Jewish students are struggling. I'm going to put it like that, point blank period. We're struggling. We have each other to rely on, but it's hard.
It's been over 500 days since October 7th. There are still hostages held.
I have to interrupt very quickly. I'll keep playing it. In their video montage, you can't make this up, they have Orthodox Jews holding up signs that say anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. And they're airing that. I mean, can you see the hypocrisy here? It's amazing. You have an alleged division among Jews themselves about all of this. It's incredible. I find it to just be absolutely incredible. Anyway, I'll continue.
Held in Israel, and on the day that these protests at Barnard kicked off again, it was Wednesday, and that was the day that Shiri Bibas, this Jewish mother, warrior mother, was laid to rest in Israel. Your thoughts on the timing of this? Why is this reestablishing itself now?
The protests, I think it's because at the beginning of the semester, there were students that interrupted a history of modern Israel class, and they walked in and they wouldn't let the professor talk, and they got expelled. And I personally believe that these students should not be allowed to learn here after breaking the university's rules so many times. And the protests were in response to them getting expelled because protesters were not happy.
Yeah. There was an executive order signed, the president directing additional measures to fight anti-Semitism. There will now be a task force enacted, and there are plans to have people visiting many of these campuses that have experienced these protests and to go directly to these colleges and talk to them about a need to address anti-Semitism on campus in a more powerful way. Your thoughts on this task force, and if it'll be effective, if it's something we need right now?
I personally hope it will be effective. I really do think it's something we need because it's so disheartening to see professors and TA and faculty, being so in support of this violence. And I really do think it's a really good thing. I truly hope that it will make a difference on campus for Jewish students and for anyone affected by the violence, honestly.
There at your university, the vice president, Robert Levin, Barnard's vice president for strategic communications, confirmed that faculty member had been injured. Do you feel like the school's response to the protests has been powerful enough?
No, I don't think so at all. There was On Wednesday night, a faculty member was sent to the hospital. I really don't think there's been enough punishment or response because people can't keep getting away with this, right? Like our learning, our safety, our well-being is at stake. And honestly, Israel is like the US. It's America's strongest ally in the Middle East. Like we really need to be focusing on, the safety of the Jewish people. And I don't think that Barnard College has done enough.
Yeah, in fairness, here's the one brief part of a statement from Barnard that mass protesters attempted to undermine Barnard's core values of respect, inclusion, and academic excellence. Let us be clear, their disregard for the safety of our community remains completely unacceptable. But Rachel Kaufman, thank you. Thank you for coming on and tell us what you're experiencing and talking about what other students are experiencing there on campus. We certainly hope that you find peace and can make it to class in the coming days and weeks ahead, certainly at the very least. Thank you very much for joining us.
First of all, for what it's worth, I've heard this Fox News anchor before. Her name is Molly Line. She's apparently Fox News' Boston correspondent. And she's always been pro-Israel to the bone, pro-Netanyahu to the bone, every pro-Israel story to the bone. I wouldn't be surprised again if she's 100% CIA. No doubt about it. And certainly paid by the Jewish lobby if I was a betting man. Of course, she works for Fox News, so that should basically tell everybody all they need to know. But again, it's just more faux outrage. It's just constant faux outrage that people just instantly fall for. That particular student wasn't wrapped up in anything whatsoever. They weren't a part of any protest. There was no building that was overtaken. There were students outside of a building, and there were people protesting outside of the building. But it's lots of different people. It's Jewish individuals. It's anti-Zionists. It's, Hamas supporters. It's Palestinian supporters. It's a bunch of people. Meanwhile, white Christians are minding their own business, going to class, being discriminated against on a constant basis for just being white. And there's no college task force for them. All this get rid of whiteness, get rid of the patriarchy, white people are inherently racist and so on and so forth. I would go so far as to say that the most racist people on the face of the planet, if that word even exists, are Zionist Jews. 100%. They're the ones that want everybody wiped out except for them. Pretty clear. Now, again, with all of that aside, and I think there's, some tricks being played on those universities, which is funny. Like I said, again, at the beginning and middle of this episode, I think there's a rug being pulled out from underneath them that they can't see. They're 100% fine losing their funding and losing their jobs over, again, perpetuating these particular problems and these particular protests, wherever they stem from. And we know, again, a lot of them are Mossad-driven and Jewish lobby-driven. Essentially, both sides, again, are getting paid by the same entity. And it's just ironic that that entity and that environment that's allowing for it to happen is also on the brink of losing their money. So, I don't know. The whole thing is confusing, but it's laughable at the same time. There's also this, very predictable, as you've heard me mention on the show before, even local teachers' unions at the K-12 level specifically are flipping out because of all of the moves that have been made by Donald Trump and the Department of Education. And of course, certainly here in the state of Ohio, with stripping more money away from public schools, you have the teachers' unions losing their minds. Again, they're involved in all of this too. They're involved in these money cuts and certainly program cuts and child trafficking and everything else that's been taking place here. So this is from Cincinnati's NBC affiliate WLWT Channel 5. Local teachers union protests potential cuts to Department of Education. Give this a listen.
Nationwide call to action about proposed cuts to the education department. It's designed to sound an alarm about President Trump's plan to do away with wasteful spending. Thanks for joining us here at 5:30. I'm Chris Jacobs.
And I'm Ashley Kirkland. Local union leaders and parents believe critical services are at risk. And they're gathering at tonight's Cincinnati School Board meeting where WLWT News 5's John London is live right now. John, what have you heard so far?
Ashley, what they're hoping for is a rise in awareness about how education money is spent. This is going to be, of course, a public meeting here tonight at the school board, and they'll use the public comment portion of the meeting to try to win over the court of public opinion about education funding. President Trump believes the U.S. Department of Education is a waste, and he wants it eliminated. His idea is to turn education over to the states. According to the Ohio Education Policy Institute, Governor Mike DeWine's proposed budget would cut funding for the public schools by more than $100 million over the next 2 years. More money would go to voucher programs and charter schools.
One of the things in the budget bill, which you cannot repeal, is any building that's under 60% capacity, the state can take over that building and close it down.
This is a crisis. This is a crisis like we've never seen it before.
Teachers Union organizer Michelle Dunn shows me a list of what's at stake. Take just one area. $559 million for speech services, reading support, and access for those with disabilities, some of Ohio's most vulnerable students.
Those with special needs, those who live in poverty. These are the very federal dollars that help, close those gaps for those students so that they can be successful.
Dunn and others contend funding is already insufficient. On a daily basis, there are roughly 3,000 CPS students who are homeless. Union leaders want the school board to adopt a community resolution against any further cuts as a way to draw attention to what's at stake.
We need educators at the table to influence some of the decisions that are impacting education.
School board president Kareem Moffitt spoke to us this afternoon about her concerns.
To say that you're going to cut students with disability services, it's irresponsible. It's disrespectful. And I'm almost going to say, I personally think it's neglectful.
Now, the CFT is organizing what it calls a clap-in for tomorrow morning, applauding students as they arrive to class. And then labor leaders intend to hold a media briefing tomorrow afternoon, just a short distance from where Vice President J.D. Vance lives in Walnut Hills, to say, instead of tax cuts to billionaires, as they put it, plow more money into Ohio schools. Live at the school board, John London, WLWT News 5.
John, what does the teachers union want the school board to do at this point?
Well, they would like to see a community resolution adopted about the cuts. It would have, of course, no force of law. President Moffitt says that she would like to wait to see what that final state budget says. The main takeaway from this is to let the board know that parents, teachers, and students sort of have their backs on this, that they stand with them about the importance of full funding for education.
The female union head that you just heard there for Cincinnati Public Schools, she made my point. Again, she's lying when she says funds are going to be taken away for special education, homeless students, and poverty-stricken students. That's a complete lie. It's another Democrat talking point, a communist talking point. It's virtue signaling, it's victim shaming and victim blaming and all that other nonsense. And they do it all the time. It's beyond pathetic. But she made my point. Again, she seems to believe that the money is going to be taken away from homeless students, poverty-stricken students, and students with special needs. No. In fact, that's already in the law, that has to be provided, which means that's really all the school environment is for those students. It's not for the mentally sound, the physically sound, and those who can read, write, and comprehend. This is not an environment for them. They're just unfortunately being lumped in with them. And unfortunately, again, a sinking tide lowers all ships. It's a serious problem. But in the future, the environment has to be left for those who can't, of course, do this themselves. And that involves teaching themselves. Parents and families have to get back to teaching their children. And teaching them, again, reading, writing, arithmetic, and those skills, lifelong skills, before they ever even enter kindergarten. And they can. Unfortunately, parents are choosing not to, in some cases. Lots of them do, which is great, but plenty of them don't. But again, every single talking point that was mentioned there is completely ridiculous. That somehow, again, showing support for a sinking ship is somehow a good thing, and getting in touch with your legislators is a good thing and whatever else. I mean, you're seeing school choice increase because the fraudulent nature of what's been going on this entire time in the field of education has been exposed and is continuing to be exposed. And the most mentally unhinged who have put all of their eggs in one basket, well, they're paying for it now. And they're screaming at the top of their lungs because they have to. They have no other response other than over-emotional nonsense. All right, I'm going to leave that right there. And it's Wednesday morning now, and I just wanted to dive in very quickly and mention a few things, of course, that happened during Trump's speech. I thought it was fantastic. I thought he knocked it out of the park, no doubt about it. I also thought this was funny. In fact, I saw it, and as soon as I saw it, I just started laughing. And then, believe it or not, right afterwards, friend of the show, friend of mine, and he's been a guest on a couple of times, Josiah Richwine, professional photographer. He goes, did you catch when Nancy Mace got blocked by Trump? She went in for the double arm hug, and Trump was like, nope. And then he just grabs both of her wrists, and then he goes in for the fake kiss, and then kind of pushes her back. It was hilarious. Too funny. Again, Nancy Mace she's an odd duck. This one is really trying very hard to be a cheerleader for Donald Trump, and at the exact same time, I don't know, make herself look more important than she is. She's all about the clips and social media and, I don't know, trying to look important. She must be up for re-election, clearly, but I don't know. She's an odd one. Very suspicious, I think. Either way, there was this too, again, and this is kind of important, Donald Trump mentioned that he froze all foreign aid to foreign countries. I mean, he just slips this line in, and it gets some applause from the right, no applause from the left, of course, but it almost seems shocking to those on the right also. So I'm interested to know if that's actually true. Because if that's true, then there should be no money to Israel. There should be no money to anybody. He stopped all foreign aid. Again, it was an interesting dime he dropped, but if that's true, that's a fantastic thing. If it isn't, well, he should specify as to what exactly that means. But again, I thought it was rather interesting. When he talked about taking down the cartels, of course, no one on the left stood up, so why wouldn't you? He's talking about taking down the cartels. He's talking about going after the cartels, eliminating cartel members and the heads of cartels, allegedly. Again, are you getting paid by the cartels? Why would you not stand up for that? Again, it was a trap. All of this is a trap. Moments like this are a complete trap because the American people who watch it are seeing that very simple direction. Donald Trump says, I'm taking out the cartels, and then there are people in the room who actually don't support that. It's fascinating to me that people, again, still fall for these traps. Again, the kid with brain cancer, who again became an honorary police officer and then an honorary Secret Service member. That was fantastic. I mean, that was very cool. And again, the left just sat on their hands because they're cold. And they, of course, view that as being some kind of a political pawn or a political, toy to sort of move around. And the fact is it's just authentic. There's just a great deal of authenticity with Donald Trump, which I think is fascinating. And it's interesting because it makes both the right and the left very nervous. Because the right, again, is remarkably inauthentic, and as is, of course, the left. But then you have, again, Donald Trump just kind of standing in the middle. And it's also, I think, a bit interesting that he doesn't seem to really enjoy either side. I mean, he knows that there are ass kissers on the right, without a doubt. And everybody just, vying for his attention in one way or another. And then, of course, you have individuals on the left who he openly said he'll never be able to please. And he doesn't care. He's just moving forward no matter what, which is a beautiful thing. And on that line, I would say this too. Just from an optics standpoint, it's interesting looking at the generals that were in the room, all of the military generals. These are all new faces. These are not individuals who have been there in the past. These are all new guys. A lot of shaved heads in the room. I'm 100% for that, as you might expect. But again, all of these dudes, they just look like they're all business and they're all brass. And I like it. Again, they're not the same generals that have been there in the past. This is a new crew. So that's something to pay attention to, I think, and certainly something that maybe I can figure out who these guys are going forward. Let's see. There was only a moment when he mentioned Gaza. He didn't bring up Israel. He didn't bring up any of that. It was only just a brief moment. Like, we got to fix what's going on there, and then he's on to the next subject. He didn't wear it out. And again, it was a brief second. When he mentioned Ukraine, it was I thought it was brief. It was very direct. It was brief, and then at the very same time, he just embarrasses the left by basically showing them that they're not in charge. That any message that they have for the people regarding Ukraine is not actually what's going on. He brings up Zelensky very quickly, says Zelensky wants a deal, apologized about the White House, the Oval Office meeting, this, that, and the other, and then he's on to another subject. But again, all that does is make the left look terrible because they clearly aren't in charge. They're trying to always trick the American people into believing that they're the ones that hold the keys to everything, and they don't. The only thing that they can do is obstruct. The only thing that they can do is engage in psychological operations. Again, earlier in the day, they were all holding up microphones and saying the same things at the exact same time. They were just reading a script. It's beyond embarrassing. And I don't know who's falling for any of this. Again, Donald Trump is in charge. It's not one political party or the other. Yes, there's a separation of powers, but clearly Donald Trump knows what's going on, and the military knows what's going on, and it's not the left. They don't know what the hell's going on. They all just got embarrassed with all of that. Also interesting, again, it goes back to freezing all foreign aid. I mean, we know he stopped aid to Ukraine, and then, of course, Zelensky's begging that he wants some kind of a deal. But again, does that lack of foreign aid include Israel? I think that's an interesting thing also. And finally, again, I think Slotkin's response at the end, the CIA, former CIA, once CIA, always CIA, gal from Michigan, congresswoman from Michigan, or senator rather from Michigan, it was beyond embarrassing, and I thought completely out of touch. Of course, they write these speeches before the Donald Trump speech actually happens, but it was just embarrassing. I don't know how else to put it. They couldn't be more out of touch. They couldn't look more like a losing side. I know that both sides are corrupt. We're fully aware of that, but it just seems to me, again, it's just a feeling that Donald Trump operates like he doesn't care about either side. I mean, he called out Marco Rubio, which I thought was hilarious yet again, putting Marco on the spot, bringing up how 99 people voted for him, and if J.D. Vance were in the room, he would have voted for him, and that would have been, that would have seemed odd, so he's got to keep his eye on Marco. I mean, it's fantastic, because again, Marco looks like a deer in headlights. He looks nervous as hell. And then, of course, he mentions John Thune also, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who has to be dirtier than hell also. And he points him out also and, again, makes him nervous as well. So, again, the cameras go on these guys, and then they look like they're shocked that they're even being brought up. So this is a good thing. Again, he's exposing a great deal of people here, and I really do think it's fantastic. Again, the business of him saying we're going to land on Mars and plant a flag on Mars, I don't think anybody in the world believes that. No one believes that. It's completely ridiculous, unless, of course, Mars stands for something else. And it's actually an acronym, which, again, it slipped my mind as to what the acronym is, but MARS, I've heard, does stand for something else, something about military and radio signal or something along those lines. I'm not entirely sure. But I don't think anybody's going to believe that actually happens. It's going to be the worst CGI we've ever seen. And yeah, it was, I mean, he'd have done well to not mention that, I suppose, assuming that that's face value stuff. But either way, I thought it was a pretty good speech. I thought it was very well done. Again, everybody has their orders here. They have direction. And if they don't follow it, all he has to do is say primary, and then it's game over. He primaries these people and they're finished. And he throws up a different candidate, and then somebody else walks in and takes their spot. And then, again, the American people in that particular area just take down that individual that didn't play ball. I think that's a very interesting way to go about this. And again, it's something that we haven't seen before, which is interesting. So I'll give you more of my thoughts again on some of the roundup on Friday, but I just wanted to jump in real quick and give you my 2 cents on that. And with that said, thank you for listening as always. Have a great Wednesday, and I'll catch you on Friday. Peace.
Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.